You do not let a defeated enemy keep its weapons. That is the rule every victorious power learns early and enforces without hesitation. Armies surrender. Governments fall. But weapons, especially revolutionary ones, are never allowed to linger without control. For centuries this rule had been absolute. You burn the ships. You melt the cannons. You scatter the arsenals so completely that no future war can be fought with yesterday's tools. By 1945, no weapon embodied this rule more than the submarine. Submarines were not trophies. They were ghosts. Invisible killers that turned oceans into hunting grounds. And no submarines had ever terrorized the seas like Germany's U-boats. For 6 years they had strangled Britain, nearly broken Atlantic supply lines, and sent tens of thousands of sailors to the bottom of the ocean without warning. Entire convoys vanished because of steel cylinders that no one could see and rarely escape. The Allies understood one truth with painful clarity. If Germany's U-boats survived the war intact, then the war was not truly over. And yet, when Germany surrendered in May 1945, those submarines did survive. Not one, not 10, but more than 150. They surfaced quietly. They raised white flags. They waited. Harbors across Europe filled with steel predators that no longer hunted but still existed. Crews stood on decks they had expected to die on. Commanders waited for orders that did not involve fighting or running. For the first time since 1939, the U-boats were helpless. The rule said they must be destroyed. But in 1945, the Allies hesitated. Because beneath the rust and oil stains, beneath the battle damage and exhaustion, the Allies began to realize something unsettling. These submarines were not relics of the past. They were the future. And deciding their fate would quietly shape the next war, before anyone admitted another war was coming. Kapitänleutnant Hans-Joachim Förster steps onto the deck of his submarine just after dawn. It is May 1945. The Atlantic is calm in a way it has no right to be. For 6 years this water has been a killing ground. A place where silence usually means danger and daylight invites death. Today nothing happens. Förster is 28 years old. The war has aged him beyond that. Before the war he studied engineering. He trusted systems, tolerances, mechanisms that failed only when pushed beyond their limits. The Kriegsmarine valued men like him, methodical, disciplined, unemotional under pressure. He joined the U-boat arm when it was still considered elite. When submariners were spoken of as Germany's sharpest weapon, and feared across every ocean. Now his submarine drifts on the surface, engines idling, its pressure hull intact but purposeless. The surrender order arrived hours earlier. Short, formal, final. All U-boats are to cease operations. Surface immediately. Surrender to the nearest Allied authority. No final patrols. No scuttling unless capture is impossible. For the first time since 1939 Germany's submarines are ordered not to fight, not to flee but to exist. Förster gathers his crew. 40 men climb onto the deck. Some barely 20 years old. Some already hollowed out by months underwater. No one speaks. The white flag is raised. Across Europe the same act unfolds again and again. U-boats surface off Norway. Off Scotland. In the Bay of Biscay. They are not attacked. Allied aircraft circle overhead, counting. Destroyers approach but hold their fire. The hunters are patient now. Surrender ports are designated with bureaucratic precision. Loch Arable, Lissahalli, Portland, Trondheim. Each becomes a holding pen for the remnants of Germany's undersea war. When Förster enters harbor, Royal Navy warships flank his submarine like guards escorting a prisoner. Boarding parties move fast, confiscating codebooks, charts, and weapons. Then the engineers arrive. Not sailors. Engineers. They crawl through the submarine with notebooks and measuring tools. They study battery banks. They examine electric motors. They linger over hull shapes. Some exchange glances. These are not the boats they expected. Because while Germany's armies collapsed from fuel shortages and bombing, its submarine arm tells a different story. Most of these boats were not destroyed in combat. They were abandoned by circumstance. Fuel ran out. Factories shattered. Crews destroyed engines before surrender to prevent reuse. Germany did not lose the submarine war because its ideas failed. It lost because time ran out. And that realization unsettles everyone who understands naval warfare. Among the surrendered fleet are familiar Type 7 boats. But mixed among them are something else. Type XXI. Type XXI. Submarines designed to fight almost entirely underwater. Faster submerged than many Allied escorts. Quiet. Streamlined. Revolutionary. The war is over. but the assumptions that governed it are not. American intelligence teams arrive. British REAM units follow. Soviet trophy brigades move fastest of all. Everyone understands the stakes. These submarines are not just weapons. They are knowledge. Every weld reveals a philosophy. Every system exposes a future Germany almost reached. The United States wants to study them. Britain wants reassurance that disaster was narrowly avoided. The Soviet Union wants replication. German crews are interrogated, then slowly released. Engineers are questioned longer. Technical specialists longest of all. Meanwhile, the harbors fill. Dozens of submarines moored side by side. Steel predators rendered inert. An entire undersea war frozen in place. The Allies cannot keep them. Maintaining them is costly. Storing them is dangerous. Allowing them to exist intact is politically impossible. Germany must never again possess a submarine fleet capable of strangling oceans. That is the official logic. So a decision is made. Quietly. Deliberately. Most of the fleet will be destroyed. Not scrapped. Not preserved. Erased. The operation will be called Deadlight. And its purpose will be simple. To ensure that Germany's submarine war does not survive the peace. What no one yet admits, what no one can fully control, is that the ideas inside those hulls are already too powerful to sink. You do not expect surrender to feel heavier than combat. But it does. Because combat gives you purpose. Surrender gives you time. Time to think. Time to remember. Time to realize that survival does not mean victory. When the order comes, cease operations, surface, surrender, it reaches boats scattered across thousands of miles of ocean. Some are deep in the Atlantic. Others hide in fjords. A few limp along coastal routes, barely functional. Each commander receives the same words. And each reads them in silence. You surface knowing that everything you have trained for has just been declared meaningless. Your submarine rises slowly, ballast tanks hissing as compressed air forces seawater out. The deck breaks the surface. The sea is calm, cruelly indifferent. You open the hatch. For years, surfacing meant danger. Aircraft. Destroyers. Now nothing happens. No bombs fall. No guns fire. Instead, Allied aircraft circle at a distance, observing. Not attacking. Watching. That silence is worse than gunfire. You raise a white flag. Across the Atlantic, the same ritual unfolds again and again. U-boats surface in daylight. Crews assemble on deck. Engines idle. Radio silence ends. By May 15, 1945, over 150 German submarines have surfaced and surrendered. They sail toward ports chosen by the Allies with bureaucratic precision. Loch Arable, Lissahully, Portland, Trondheim. Each arrival is controlled, photographed, logged. Destroyers escort the submarines into harbor as if they are radioactive objects rather than prisoners of war. Boarding parties move fast. They seize codebooks. They confiscate charts. They photograph every compartment. Engineers crawl through hulls that smell of oil, sweat, rust, and exhaustion. They measure battery banks. They examine electric motors. They trace wiring diagrams. Some of them realize immediately what they are seeing. These boats were not meant to fight the last war. They were meant to fight the next one. The Type XXI, in particular, disturbs everyone who understands submarines. It is not fast on the surface. It does not need to be. It is faster underwater than Allied destroyers are when hunting. That fact alone breaks every assumption naval doctrine has relied on since 1914. And now there are dozens of them, intact, surrendered, waiting. The Allies have a problem. They cannot keep them. They cannot destroy them quietly. They cannot let anyone else have them uncontested. So they do all three. Operation Deadlight begins. The name is intentionally bland. Deadlight sounds like paperwork. It sounds like disposal. It sounds like closure. But Deadlight is the largest deliberate sinking of submarines in history. The Royal Navy is assigned responsibility. The numbers are precise. 156 U-boats surrendered. 116 designated for destruction. 3 scuttling zones. 100 to 120 nautical miles northwest of Ireland. These zones are labeled XX, YY, and ZZ. Not names. Coordinates. Because what is about to happen is not symbolic. It is mechanical. The first challenge is movement. Submarines are not designed to be towed long distances on the surface. Many surrendered boats are already compromised. Some have cracked hulls from depth charge damage. Others have sabotaged engines. Crews intentionally damaged systems to prevent capture. Many have not undergone proper maintenance for months. Winter arrives early. Atlantic storms roll in with brutal regularity. Royal Navy tugs begin towing the first boats in November 1945. Steel cables strain. Hull plates groan. Seams fail. One by one, submarines begin to sink before reaching the scuttling zones. Not dramatically. Quietly. Water floods ballast tanks. Engines fail. The tow cable goes slack. Coordinates are recorded. No salvage attempts follow. By December, 56 U-boats have already sunk unintentionally. No ceremony. No recovery. The purpose is erasure. Those that survive the tow reach the scuttling zones. Destroyers take position. Guns are loaded. Orders are issued. Fire. Shells slam into pressure hulls that once endured depth charges and fear. Steel buckles. Water floods compartments that no one will ever enter again. Some submarines resist. They take hit after hit, refusing to sink quickly, testament to German engineering even in defeat. Explosive charges are lowered. Sea valves are opened. Hull integrity finally collapses. The submarine lists. The deck slips beneath the waves. The sea closes over it. No one salutes. Because salutes are for victories. This is disposal. U-2336 is destroyed in January 1946, the last U-boat to sink Allied ships during the war. U-295 follows days later. And finally U-2511, the most advanced submarine Germany ever completed, is sunk on February 7, 1946. Operation Deadlight officially ends. The Battle of the Atlantic does not conclude with a battle. It ends with paperwork and gunfire aimed at empty hulls. But the story does not end there. Because while Deadlight destroys steel, it does not destroy ideas. If you find this kind of forgotten military history compelling, the moments that never made headlines, the decisions made quietly, and the consequences that shape decades of conflict, we'd be honored if you subscribe to this channel. What the public never sees is the parallel operation running alongside Deadlight. While most U-boats are being erased, a select few are being studied with obsessive care. The Tripartite Naval Commission, formed in August 1945, divides the technological spoils between the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union. Each power receives 10 submarines. Not equally important ones. The priority is clear. Type XXI. Type XXI. Anything that changes the rules. British engineers rename U-3017 as HMS N-41. They run submerged endurance trials. They test sonar evasion. They test silent running. And the results are unsettling. The submarine can remain underwater far longer than expected. Its speed underwater is not just competitive, it is dominant. British doctrine is obsolete overnight. The Americans conduct their own examinations at New London and Portsmouth. They strip boats down to frames. They diagram battery layouts. They analyze hull hydrodynamics. The conclusion is unanimous. This is not a German weapon. This is the future of naval warfare. The Soviets take things further. They do not test. They replicate. German submarines are dismantled plate by plate. Hull geometry is copied. Snorkel systems are reverse engineered. Pressure hull techniques are transferred directly into Soviet shipyards. Within years, the Whiskey-class submarines emerge, descendants of Type XXI design philosophy. The Cold War is not announced. It begins underwater. The irony is devastating. The Allies destroy Germany's submarine fleet to ensure peace. But in doing so, they create a blueprint that fuels an arms race beneath the oceans. Every submarine built after 1946, American, British, Soviet, owes something to German U-boat design. Even nuclear submarines inherit the hydrodynamic principles pioneered by a defeated enemy. Meanwhile, the wrecks of Operation Deadlight remain untouched. For decades they lie silent. Then, between 2001 and 2003, maritime archaeologist Innes McCartney locates them using sonar. 14 intact hulls. Upright. Preserved. Armed. Steel time capsules. They are not looted. They are not razed. They remain where they fell. Because by now the lesson is understood. You can destroy weapons. You cannot erase what they teach you. You return to a country that no longer exists in the form you knew. Your submarine is gone. Your comrades are scattered. Your war is something people want to forget. But the U-boats do not disappear entirely. U-995 becomes a museum ship in Le Beau. U-505 rests in Chicago. U-534 is raised, sliced open, and displayed as a steel autopsy. Others lie untouched, upright on the seabed off Ireland, silent, intact, still armed. More than 30,000 German submariners never returned from patrol. And countless Allied sailors never knew what hit them. Today these wrecks serve as memorials without flags. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on that mission, subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or country, and tell us if someone in your family served at sea. Thank you for ensuring that Hans-Joachim Förster and tens of thousands like him do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.